Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Param Chandra Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayati Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhaktasevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Ashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Lord Rishabhadev's teachings to his sons, text number 24 onwards. Dhrita tanu rushati me purani yenah sattvam paramam pavitram shamodama satyam anugrihascha tapastitikshānubhavascha yatra. So in the previous few verses, Rishabhadev was glorifying the Brahmins and how the Lord favors the Brahmins, the devotees. And Prabhupada clarified it doesn't mean the caste Brahmins, it means the devotees. So further, Rishabhadev is speaking. The Vedas are my eternal, transcendental sound incarnation. Therefore, the Vedas are Shabda Brahma. In this world, the Brahmins thoroughly study all the Vedas. And because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they are also to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmins are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva-guna. Because of this, they are fixed in mind control, Shama, sense control, Dhamma, and truthfulness, Satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, Anugraha, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, titiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhav. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brahmins. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brahmins. So these are the 8 qualities mentioned here. Shama, Dhamma, Satya, and then Anugraha, Tapasya, Titiksha, and Anubhav. This is a true description of a Brahman. A Brahman is one who has assimilated the Vedic conclusions by practicing mind and sense control. He speaks the true version of all the Vedas, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedasya Sarve Ahamev Vedya. By studying all the Vedas, one should come to understand the transcendental position of Lord Shri Krishna. One who actually assimilated the essence of the Vedas can preach the truth. He is compassionate to the conditioned souls who are suffering the threefold miseries of this conditional world due to their not being Krishna conscious. A Brahman should take pity on the people and preach Krishna consciousness in order to elevate them. Shri Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally descends into this universe from the spiritual kingdom to teach conditioned souls about the values of spiritual life. He tries to induce them to surrender unto him. Similarly, the Brahmins do the same thing. After assimilating the Vedic instructions, they assist the Supreme Lord in his endeavor to deliver conditioned souls. The Brahmins are very dear to the Supreme Lord due to their high Sattva-guna qualities, and they also engage in welfare activities for all conditioned souls in the material world. So these are the different qualities of Brahman, and because they study the Vedas and they teach the essence of Vedas, they engage in devotion service, they themselves are engaged and they engage others in devotion service. This is why they are very, very dear to Krishna. Because they know the essence of Vedas, and their essence of Vedas is to know Krishna. And they're engaging people in this manner, in this process. So Krishna is very pleased with them, because this is the purpose of Krishna's appearance anyway, to come and let people know about himself and his spiritual abode, and to bring them back to the spiritual abode. Matto apyanantat paratah parasmat svargapavargah dhipatirna kinchit yesham kimu syadi taren tesham akinchananam mai bhakti bhaja. I am fully opulent, almighty, and superior to Lord Brahma and Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. I am also the bestower of all happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom and by liberation. Nonetheless, the Brahmins do not seek material comforts from me. They're very pure and do not want to possess anything. They simply engage in my devotional service. What is the need of their asking for material benefits from anyone else? So they don't ask from me and they don't ask for anybody else also, the material benefits. The perfect Brahminical qualification is stated herein. Akinchananam mai bhakti bhaja. The Brahmins are always engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. Consequently, they have no material wants, nor do they possess material things. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains the position of pure Vaishnavas who are anxious to return home back to Godhead. Those who actually want to return back to Godhead are Nishkinchan. That is, they have no desire for material comfort. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises material opulence and sense gratification through the association of women are more dangerous than poison. Brahmins who are pure Vaishnavas always engage in Lord's service and are devoid of any desire for material gain. The Brahmins do not worship demigods like Lord Brahma, Indra, or Lord Shiva for any material comfort. They do not even ask the Supreme Lord for material profit. Therefore, it is concluded that the Brahmins are the supreme living entities of this material world. Shri Kapil Dev also confirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. The Brahmins are always dedicated to the Lord's service with their bodies, mind, and words. There is no better person than a Brahmin who thus engages himself and dedicates himself to the Supreme Lord. So that is why they're very, very dear to the Lord, because they don't ask for anything. They're fully satisfied in their service to the Lord. Sarvani madhishneyatya bhavadhyar bhavaddesh charani bhutani sutadhruvani sambhavit vyani pade padevo vivikt drig bhistadu harhanam me. My dear sons, you should not envy any living entity, be he moving or non-moving. Knowing that I am situated in them, you should offer respect to all of them at every moment. In this way, you offer respect to me. That's actually an instruction for all of us to follow. We're trying to be devotees of the Lord. Be a living entity, be he moving or non-moving, should not be envious of him and know that Krishna is situated in everybody, in every living entity. We should pay obeisances, we pay respects to everybody. In this verse, the word Vivikta Drigbhi, meaning without envy, is used. All living entities are the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. The Lord is situated in this universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu and Kshirodaksha Vishnu. He is also situated within every atom. According to the Vedic statement, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam, the Supreme Lord is situated everywhere, and wherever He is situated is His temple. We even offer respects to a temple from a distant place, and all living entities should similarly be offered respect. So He's everywhere. He's also in the temple, and He's also in every living entity. So theoretically we know, but when it comes to practical dealing, we just forget that. This is different from the theory of pantheism, which holds that everything is God. So there is a difference. between pantheism. Pantheism means everything is God. But Vaishnava understanding is God is everywhere. He's in every living entity, but every living entity is not God. Everything has a relationship with God because God is situated everywhere. We should not make any particular distinction between the poor and rich, like the foolish worshippers of Daridra Narayan. Narayan is present in the rich as well as in the poor. One should not simply think Narayan is situated among the poor. He is everywhere. An advanced devotee will offer respects to everyone, even to cats and dogs. Of course, that doesn't mean we deal with all the cats and dogs and everybody in the same way. Just like the ones in an ashram, a new bhakta had come, had joined, and he was listening to lectures, and he heard God is everywhere. He's in every living entity, and you should pay respects to everybody because God is there. So he said, "Oh, this is wonderful." See, what happens is when we are neophytes, when we are new, then we don't know how to apply that knowledge. We get the knowledge, but we don't know how to apply. So he came out of the Gurukul and he was going home, and on the road he saw an elephant coming, and elephant was little, that mad elephant. He was running fast. But this boy, he thought, oh, God is everywhere. He's in the heart of this elephant. So he started paying obeisances to the elephant. He was doing pranam to the elephant, and the elephant came close, and he just picked up this boy with his trunk and just threw him far away. And then the elephant kept running. And the boy fell down and he broke some of his bones, and then he was hurt badly, and he came home. And then some people brought him home, and on the way home he said, "What did I do wrong? I was just paying obeisances to the Supreme Lord in the elephant." And then the people who were bringing him home, he said, because they understood, he didn't understand the proper knowledge. He said, "Oh, you saw the Lord in the heart of the elephant. You didn't see the Lord in the heart of the Mahavat who was sitting on top of the elephant and telling you to get out of the way. The elephant is mad." So yes, we understand, we know, we respect everybody, but still we have to deal with everybody differently, depending upon their consciousness. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. This samdarshana, equal vision, should not be mistaken to mean that the individual is the same as the Supreme Lord. They are always distinct. Every individual person is different from the Supreme Lord. It is a mistake to equate the individual living entity with the Supreme Lord on the plea of Vivek or Samadrik. The Lord is always in an exalted position, even though he agrees to live everywhere. Srila Madhvacharya, quoting Padma Puran, states, "One who has clear vision and who is devoid of envy can see the Supreme Lord is separate from all living entities, although he is situated in every living entity." Why he says one who is devoid of envy can see? Because of our envious attitude, envious propensity of heart, we become envious of each other, but we are in the material world because somehow in the spiritual world we developed enviousness of Krishna. So when we become envious of Krishna, means we want to be equal to Krishna. We don't want to serve Krishna. So, so Mayavadis, because they treat each other or they respect each other as Namo Narayan. They say, you are Narayan, I'm Narayan, everybody is Narayan. They think we are God. But that is enviousness, because we are never God, we are servants of God. In fact, to a certain extent, even Karm Khandis, they want to enjoy. They say, why Krishna is the only enjoyer? Why can't we be the enjoyer? So since they want to enjoy as much as Krishna, they are not as big envious as Mayavadis are. To a certain extent, they also have the same feeling. To a certain extent. So only the devotees, and that is why previously Rishabdev Maharaj said the Brahmins or the devotees are very dear to Krishna, because they just want to serve the Lord. So not one who is not envious and one who has a clear vision can see that the Lord is separate from all living entities, although he is situated in every living entity. Madhvacharya further quotes from Padma Puran, one who sees the living entity and the Supreme Lord as always distinct is very dear to the Lord. Padma Puran also states, one who preaches that the living entities are separate from the Supreme Lord is very dear to Lord Vishnu. So one who preaches that we are separate from Krishna, and obviously when he preaches that, he's going to preach that goal of life is to serve Krishna. So we can only serve when we are separate from them. If we are equal to him, why would we serve him? So that part has to be clearly imbibed in our minds. We are never equal to him. We are never going to be equal to him. Equal to him in the sense we are all spiritual, but quantitatively, when we are tiny, we are infinitesimal, and he is infinite. Mano vacho drik karne hitasya sakshat kritam me paribarhanam hi vinapumani maha vimohat kritant pashanna vimoktumishet. The true activity of the sense organs, mind, sight, words, and all the knowledge gathering and working senses is to engage fully in my service. Unless his senses are thus engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of material existence, which is exactly like Yamaraj's stringent rope. So unless his senses are engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement, because if our senses are not engaged in Krishna's service, they'll be engaged in sense gratification. That's all they can do. As stated in Narad Pancharatra, this is a conclusion of bhakti. Means sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishise kesha sevanam bhakti chate. So engaging all the senses in the service of the master of the senses is bhakti. All the time, Lord Rishabdev has been stressing devotional service, and now he is concluding by saying that all the senses should be engaged in the Lord's service. There are 5 senses by which we gather knowledge and 5 senses with which we work. These 10 senses and the mind should be fully engaged in the Lord's service. Without engaging them in this way, one cannot get out of the clutches of Maya. So we cannot get out if we don't engage our senses in service of the Lord. Text 28. So I'll just go to the translation because again it's a prose verse. Shukdev Goswami said, thus the great well-wisher of everyone, the Supreme Lord Rishabdeva, instructed his own sons. Although they were perfectly educated and cultured, he instructed them just to set an example of how a father should instruct his sons before retiring from family life. So because Rishabdev Maharaj is a king, is Supreme Lord himself, and it is Srimad Bhagavatam, And his instructions are given because they're perfect instructions that any father should give to his sons. It's not like father giving instructions. Oh, son, you'll see, make sure the family business that I have established, maybe made grow 2, 3, 10 times, and you should work hard in making the family business grow and make more money and make more factories or buy more houses or this or that. Engage everything, all the senses in the service of the Lord. And follow the instructions of the Brahmins because they are so pure, so devoted, so dear to Krishna, and they always give the right instructions because they are compassionate. In Kali Yuga, which father gives these kind of instructions? Nobody. Sannyasis who are no longer bound by fruitive activity and who have taken to devotional service after all the material desires have been vanquished also learn by these instructions. Lord Rishabdeva instructed his 100 sons, of whom the eldest, Bharat, was a very advanced devotee and a follower of Vaishnavas. In order to rule the whole world, the Lord enthroned his eldest son on the royal seat. Therefore, although still at home, Lord Rishabdev lived like a madman. So this is what Lord Rishabdev adopted after he gave up his kingdom. He was still in his house, but he was living like a madman, naked and with disheveled hair. Then the Lord took the sacrificial fire within himself and he left Brahmavat to tour the entire world. So we read about the 4 stages of sannyas: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajkacharya, and Paramhans. So in the beginning, he was at home because according to Varnashram system, one should leave the house, take sannyas and leave the house. So first he remained in the house and then, and how he lived in the house? Like a madman, naked and with disheveled hair. Means he was way, way, way beyond the worldly concept of life. And he wanted to show it to the world by his example that just caring for this body is not the goal of life. We have to go beyond. Of course, we cannot imitate Rishabdev Maharaj. And this is what Archana Mataji asked the other day. If Jainis, they claim that they follow Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev, but we'll read now what he did. And definitely they don't follow. And first of all, the Lord Rishabdev, he didn't speak of this Mayavad philosophy. And Jainis, they don't believe in devotional service. Ultimate aim is to merge in the Supreme, in Brahm Jyoti. And nowhere Lord Rishabdev gave that kind of teachings. Actually, the instructions given to Lord Rishabdev's sons were not exactly meant for his sons because they were already educated and highly advanced in knowledge. Rather, these instructions were meant for sannyasis who intend to become advanced devotees. Sannyasis must abide by Lord Rishabdev's instructions while on the path of devotional service. Lord Rishabdev retired from family life and lived like a naked madman, even while still with his family. And then what he did. Jadandham mok badhir pishachon mad kavad avadhut veshu avibhashya mani jananam grihi tamon vritastushni uva. After accepting the feature of Avadhuta. So actually Avadhut stage is the topmost stage, even beyond Babaji Vesh, is Avadhuta. A great saintly person without material cares. Lord Rishabdev passed through human society like a blind, deaf and dumb man, an idle stone, a ghost or a madman. Although people called him such names, he remained silent and did not speak to anyone because he was fully absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. And he didn't care for his body. And people didn't realize this was their king, because this is how Rishabdev was behaving. He didn't want any respect from anybody, because that respect could have entangled him. The word Avadhuta refers to one who does not care for social conventions, particularly the Varnashram Dharma. However, such a person may be situated fully within himself and be satisfied with the Supreme Personality of Godhead on whom he meditates. In other words, one who has surpassed the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharma is called Avadhuta. Such a person has already surpassed the clutches of Maya, and he lives completely separate and independent. So Avadhuta means fully transcendental person. Completely above the rules of Varnashram Dharma. Completely, because he's fully transcendent, he's way beyond. It's many times not an Avadhuta, like many times person who has nothing, in devotion service or devotee circles, many times we find people who act like they have nothing to do with the material world, or they don't like to follow the customs, or they just do the things their own way, and we just call them, oh, you are Avadhuta. But that's not Avadhuta. Avadhuta is very, very high position. So it might look like the same activities that a person who is in ignorance does. But Avadhuta is not ignorant. Avadhuta is beyond even the mode of goodness. He is in completely spiritual, completely on the spiritual plan. And in total love with the God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 30, translation. Rishabdev began to tour through cities, villages, mines, countrysides, valleys, gardens, military camps, cow pens, the homes of cowherd men, transient hotels, hills, forests, and hermitages. Wherever he traveled, all bad elements surrounded him, just as flies surround the body of an elephant coming from a forest. He was always being threatened, beaten, urinated upon, and spat upon. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And people are doing this to him. Sometimes people threw stones, a stool, and dust at him. And sometimes people passed foul air before him. Thus people called him many bad names and gave him a great deal of trouble. But he did not care about this, for he understood that the body is simply meant for such an end. He was situated on a spiritual platform, and being in a spiritual glory, he did not care for all these material insults. In other words, he completely understood that matter and spirit are separate, and he had no bodily conception. Thus, without being angry at anyone, he walked through the whole world alone. Narottam Das Thakur says, Dehi smriti nahi yada sansara bandhan kahan. When a person fully realizes that the material body and world are temporary, he is not concerned with pain and pleasures of the body. Shri Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception. Ocean of Bharat, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. As far as Rishabdev is concerned, it has already been explained, idam shariram mam durvibhave. He did not at all possess a material body, and therefore he was tolerant of all the troubles offered to him by the bad elements in the society. So the bad elements are always there, even in Treta Yuga. But Rishabdev Maharaj, he did not have the material body. His body was completely spiritual, but he was still tolerant of everything. Consequently, he could tolerate people throwing stool and dust upon him and beating him up. His body was transcendental, and consequently, he did not at all suffer pain. He was always situated in his spiritual bliss. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Since the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, he is in the heart of dogs and hogs also. If hogs and dogs in the material bodies live in filthy places, one should not think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature also lives in a filthy place. Although Lord Rishabdev was maltreated by the bad elements of the world, he was not at all affected. Therefore, it is stated here, Swa Mahima Avasthanena. He was situated in his own glory. He was never saddened due to being insulted in the many ways described above. So he was setting an example for all the, especially the sannyasis or all the devotees who want to advance, must get out of the bodily concept of life and then be situated in oneself, be satisfied, be in the bliss within you. Don't look for happiness outside. And even if people do all these kinds of things, disrespect you or beat you up or do all this nonsense, just tolerate and be satisfied. Text 31. Lord Rishabdev's hands, feet, and chest were very long. His shoulders, face, and limbs were all very delicate and symmetrically proportioned. His mouth was beautifully decorated with his natural smile, and he appeared all the more lovely with his reddish eyes spread wide like the petals of a newly grown lotus flower covered with dew in the early morning. The irises of his eyes were so pleasing that they removed all the troubles of everyone who saw him. His forehead, ears, neck, nose, and all other features were very beautiful. His gentle smile always made his face beautiful, so much so that he even attracted the hearts of married women. It was as though they had been pierced by the arrows of Cupid. About his head was an abundance of curly, matted brown hair. His hair were disheveled because his body was dirty and not taken care of. He appeared as if he were haunted by a ghost. So even in that situation, women were attracted to him. Although Lord Rishabdev's body was very much neglected, his transcendental features were so attractive that even married women were attracted to him. His beauty and dirtiness combined to make his beautiful body appear as though it were haunted by a ghost. But he was always in transcendental situation. Now he took a further position. When Lord Rishabdev saw that the general populace was very antagonistic to his execution of mystic yoga, he accepted the behavior of a python in order to counteract their opposition. Thus he stayed in one place and lay down. So before that he was traveling all over, but now he went even one step further. He stayed in one place like a python, and it is called Ajagar Vritti. While lying down, he ate and drank, and he passed stool and urine and rolled in it. Indeed, he smeared his whole body with his own stool and urine so that the opposing elements might not come and disturb him. You can't even understand or imagine this position. According to one's destiny, one enjoys allotted happiness and distress, even though one keeps himself in one place. This is the injunction of the Shastras. When one is spiritually situated, he may stay in one place and all his necessities will be supplied by the arrangement of the Supreme Controller. Unless one is a preacher, there is no need to travel all over the world. A person can stay in one place and execute devotion service suitably according to time and circumstance. When Rishabdev saw that he was simply being disturbed by traveling throughout the world, he decided to lie down in one place like a python. Thus he ate, drank, and he passed stool and urine and smeared his body with them so that people would not disturb him. And Ajakar Vritti or Python, what does he do? He just sits at one place, and basically I think it says he keeps his mouth open when he's hungry, and if an animal comes in his mouth, he eats it. Otherwise, he just sits there. He doesn't go anywhere. So that was a height of sannyas or renunciation by Rishabdev Maharaj. Tasya Haya Purush, and although he passed stool and urine and he smeared his body with the stool and urine, but what happened later on? It says, Tasya Haya Purish Sur Abhi Sogandha Sogandhya Vayustam Desham Dash Yojanam Samantat Surabhim Chakar. Because Lord Rishabdev remained in that condition, the public does not disturb him now. So earlier they were throwing stool and urine and stones and calling him bad names, but not anymore. But no bad aroma emanated from his stool and urine. Now that is because he is spiritual. Quite the contrary, his stool and urine was so aromatic that they filled 80 miles, 10 yojan, 80 miles of the countryside with a pleasant fragrance. 80 miles. So 80 miles means about 150 kilometers. So from Delhi to Vrindavan is about 150 kilometers, something like that. So just imagine if we are transcendently situated and we pass stool and urine in Delhi, and it just makes the whole atmosphere so pleasant with a nice fragrance up to all the way to Vrindavan. Can't imagine. From this, we can certainly assume that Lord Rishabdev was transcendently blissful. His stool and urine was so completely different from material stool and urine that they were aromatic. Even in the material world, cow dung is accepted as purified and antiseptic. A person can keep stacks of cow dung in one place, and it will not create a bad odor to disturb anyone. We can take it for granted that in the spiritual world, stool and urine are also pleasantly scented. Indeed, the entire atmosphere became very pleasant due to Lord Rishabdev's stool and urine. And this is something nobody has even ever heard of. And people, Jains, say, oh, we are followers of Lord Rishabdev. Not really. And also, one of the lectures or conversations, Srila Prabhupada said, so if anybody claims that he is God, let him pass stool and urine and make the whole place aromatic, just like Rishabdev did. And since he cannot do that, means he is just a rascal, he is not God. I'm not exactly quoting what Prabhupada said, but this is my version of what he said. But this is what the Lord can do. He can do amazing things. Amazing. And if anybody says, I'm God, you're God, okay, just tell him to make his stool and urine fragrant. Forget about 80 miles. Let's only talk about 80 centimeters. That's good enough. एवं गोमृग कचर्यायाः व्रजंस्तिष्ठानसीनः श्यान काक मृग गोचरितः पिबति खादति avaham ehati sma. In this way, Lord Rishabdev followed the behavior of cows, deer, and crows. Sometimes he moved or walked, and sometimes he sat down in one place. Sometimes he lay down, behaving exactly like cows, deer, and crows. In that way, he ate, drank, passed stool and urine, and cheated the people in that way. Being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabdev possessed a transcendental spiritual body. Since the general public could not appreciate his behavior and mystic yoga practice, they began to disturb him. To cheat them, he behaved like crows, cows, and deer. So he was just acting so differently, so weirdly. Ordinary people could not understand his position. So even in this day and age, if there's somebody as a devotee and is trying to follow the path of dharma or path of devotional service, and he has his own practices, ordinary people just cannot understand. They cannot relate to it. They cannot understand. It's just because we have adopted the mode of Prabhupada. In his mode, we are trying to preach. So we don't behave just like Rishabdev Maharaj is doing here. So then we cannot preach. For preaching, one has to be socially accepted. Then he can preach. Then people will come and listen to it. But this is the highest standard of renunciation. Text 35. O King Parikshit, just to show all the yogis the mystic process, Lord Rishabdev, the partial expansion of Lord Krishna, performed wonderful activities. Actually, he was a master of liberation and was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss, which increased 1,000-fold. Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is the original source of Lord Rishabdev. There is no difference in their constitution, and consequently, Lord Rishabdev awakened the loving symptoms of crying, laughing, and shivering. He was always absorbed in transcendental love. Due to this, all mystic powers automatically approached him, and such as the ability to travel in outer space at the speed of mind, to appear and disappear, to enter the bodies of others, and to see things far, far away. Although he could do all this, he did not exercise these powers. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ateva Shant. The word Shant means completely peaceful. Unless all one's desires are fulfilled, one cannot be peaceful. Everyone is trying to fulfill his aspirations and desires, be they material or spiritual. Those in the material world are ashanta, without peace, because they have so many desires to fulfill. The pure devotees, however, is without desire. Anya bilashita shunya. A pure devotee is completely free from all kinds of material desires. Karmis, on the other hand, are simply full of desires because they try to enjoy sense gratification. They're not peaceful in this life, not the next, during the past, present, or future. Similarly, Gyanis are always aspiring after liberation and trying to become one with the Supreme. Yogis are aspiring after many siddhis. So they all have desires. However, a devotee is not at all interested in these things because he is fully dependent on the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is Yogeshwara, the possessor of all mystic powers. He is Atmaram, fully satisfied. The yoga siddhis are described in this verse. One can fly in outer space without the aid of a machine, and he can travel at the speed of mind. This means that as soon as a yogi desires to go somewhere within this universe, or even beyond this universe, he can do so immediately. One cannot estimate the speed of mind, for within a second, the mind can go millions of miles. Sometimes yogis enter into the bodies of other people and act as they desire when their bodies are not working properly. When the body becomes old, a perfect yogi can find a young, able body. Giving up his old body, the yogi can enter into the young body and act as he pleases. Being a plenary expansion of Lord Vasudeva, Lord Rishabdev possessed all these mystic yogic powers, but he was satisfied with his devotion service, love for Krishna, which was evinced by the ecstatic symptoms such as crying, laughing, and shivering. So the Lord Rishabdev Maharaj, he is completely peaceful, and because he had love for Krishna, he was sometimes crying, laughing, shivering. So displaying those ashta sattvic vikar, and way above all these positions of karmis and jnanis and yogis, and just showing complete love for Krishna as a sannyasi and setting an example for the sannyasis. So thus ends the 5th chapter of 5th canto. So tomorrow we'll start the next chapter. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I had heard a lecture on this story of Avadhuta, but I don't know whether it is Rishabdev only, because when what you were describing, I was thinking of that lecture and it was almost the same. So it is Rishabdev only. There's no
Must
story
be.
about any. Okay, and there, Prabhuji, in that lecture, I had heard that some, I don't remember the king, or it was somebody who took this siksha from him.
Oh no, then it is Jad Bharat.
Okay.
He also acted in the similar way.
Okay, Prabhuji.
And his instructions to Maharaja Rahugana, very, very wonderful instructions that we'll study in this canto.
Okay, Prabhuji. So they are different. Bharat Maharaj is different and Rishabh Maharaj. So it's like two Avadhuts, we can say.
Bharat Maharaj is son of Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev. And so Bharat Maharaj, when towards the end of his life, he just goes to the forest, leaves everything. And he was doing his tapasya. But then at the last days of his tapasya, he got attracted to a baby deer. So next life, he had to take the form of a deer, take the birth as a deer. But as a deer, he was still going to the ashram of sages because he was so advanced when he was Bharat Maharaj. And then when next life, he again took the body of a human being. He remembered what mistakes he made, and then he acted as a Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat means like a fool. He showed to the world that he's like a fool and lazy and ignorant. He just didn't know anything. But he was fully self-realized, and that we can see from his instructions to Maharaja Rahugana.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Any other question or comment? Okay, so we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank